What if I told you that Google spent nearly $1 billion on the best image in the world, but ate those words in 2 months? That happened to Lan Yuanduan once, and so why do chances like Microsoft's, who make fantastically successful products, slip by without any particular notice from the rest of us? And why can a tiny little innovation in some other field now be worth as much as $9 billion? And wondering whether all this could possibly be true might change your outlook completely for a minute. For a whole month every year, over 30,000 new products go on the market, and then here's a hard thing to tell. Isn't all this truth? The figures, so much for reality. However quiet, big local merchandisers will still take trips to America's educational institutions, and every so often get smacked in the face. In electrical engineering, countless years have been poured into these rare thrills. That is what's on tap today, the tech that will be as good for engineers as it is family treasure for mankind. These are the stories that make history. This time, we wired ourselves up with wireless technology, so can you have original intelligence? First, we'll examine a major league product, the success story, iPhone. In June 2007, Steve Jobs walked off the Apple tree and said he was going to take three things completely apart: a phone, an iPod, and an internet browser. So then wait. He would Ionic, with extra news input. These are not three separate devices. This is one device. People streamed into the shops. Within the first week, more than 500,000 units had sold. By 3 years later, Apple had sold 21 million iPhones. Today, it's one of the most successful products in history. But here's the part that most people forget. The iPhone wasn't the first smartphone. It wasn't even close. BlackBerry owned the market. Nokia was enormous. Motorola had been making voices for years. What made the iPhone different then? At the time of its introduction in 2007, got the feeling that people were just ready for something like it. After all, 400 or 500 million mobile phone owners were going to use these high-powered function devices as cameras. 3G networks were coming online, and touchscreens as an interface were not unknown due to ATMs and airport kiosks. First of all, the timing was just right. By 2007, the culture had matured. People that year were carrying around all sorts of devices: a phone, a music player, a camera. It was feasible technologically to combine these for the first time without giving anything up. 3G networks were rolling out. People were already familiar with touchscreens from ATMs, airport kiosks, and the like. Second, Apple solved a real problem. People wanted the internet in their palm, but mobile browsers at the time were crap. Websites looked broken. You had to zoom in and out all the time. Apple built a browser based on computer standards, not the clunky mobile versions everybody else made use of. Third, the design was simple. No physical keyboard, a just big screen, and intuitive gestures. It looked and felt unlike anything else. People wanted to be seen with it. It rapidly became a status symbol. But there's something deeper. Apple didn't just sell features. They sold a vision. They promised you the real internet, not some watered-down mobile version. And when people got one in their hands, it lived up to its hype. The iPhone was successful, not as general rule only waiting for market, problem clear. Solution can be executed. Where do we go wrong, Lucifer? What could we have done instead? Among the people who participated in this dialogue are Lolter Calder Dave Grossman, famous author and speaker, Dr. Peter Harries and Cynthia Brown, longtime DE stress facilitators. After the interview with Lucifer, they will make some observations about both those questions and further ideas on how to plan for one's own future. The failure story. Google Glass. At the beginning of 2013, Google introduced something right out of the future. Smart glasses, a computer on your face. Everything hands-free. With a voice command, you could take pictures. You could get directions without looking down at that little screen in your hand. It was radical. It looked like the future. Time magazine named it one of the year's best inventions. Vogue did a 12-page spread on it. Celebrities would wear it. The excitement was enormous. Google charged $1,500 for early access. People called themselves glass explorers. It was exclusive, revolutionary, like living in tomorrow's world. Reality check. The first problem is that nobody understood why they needed it. Could take photos hands-free, but your phone already does that, and you could get directions. However, phone again, did this for we, didn't glass solve a problem people actually had. It just did things differently. It wasn't any better. The second problem comes again. Privacy panic. That camera on your face made people uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. You could record anyone without them knowing. The result? Bars and restaurants started banning them. Movie theaters did too. Even some restaurants followed suit. There were people who took to calling glass wearers glassholes. The social stigma became brutal. The third problem was design. The learning curve was steep. You had to speak commands out loud rather than tapping your way around, which in public felt embarrassing. It was the whole 9 yards. Nothing meant easy in their conception. Anyway, it says that heats up quickly when recording video and isn't very power efficient. Battery life is poor. Probably the worst problem was timing. People were just getting used to having computers in their pockets. In America, only about 55% of people had a smartphone. They weren't prepared to wear them on their faces yet. Google lost $895 million on glass. By 2015, they stopped selling it to consumers. Today, only for industrial use in warehouses and factories. The accidental success. Post-it notes. But here's where we really start to run into trouble. Let's talk about post-it notes. In 1968, a scientist named Spencer Silver was working at 3M. He had a clear mission: create a super strong adhesive for the aerospace industry, the kind that bonds permanently and yet is extremely powerful. He failed completely. Instead, it stuck to nothing. You could peel it off. It left no residue. In every sense of the word, the effect Silver achieved was precisely opposite his intention. So Silver hung around 3M with his weak little adhesive, trying to peddle it for 5 years. He thought of the idea he first aired. It was a solution, looking for a problem. But nobody paid any attention. The lonely salesman went around. Meanwhile, in 1974, someone else working with him hit a totally different problem. This person was Art Fry. He sang in a church choir, and every week he used little pieces of paper to mark hymns. And every week, whatever notes he had marked with on those pieces of paper fell out. This was annoying. What he needed was a bookmark that stayed put but wouldn't harm the pages. Then he thought of Silver's weak adhesive. That was actually what he wanted. Fry made the first post-it notes. But even then, 3M did not get it. They tried it in 4 cities as Press and Peel, 1977. The trial failed. Sales were disappointing. The company nearly canned themselves and sold it off. There was one more try. The next year in Boise, Idaho, they offered free trials to offices. There wasn't a sales pitch, just try them out. When 90% tried them, they bought more. The product exploded. By 1980, Post-it notes were on sale nationwide. Today, 3M sells over 50 billion Post-it notes every year in more than 100 countries. Also, it's an accidental color. The lab only had yellow scrap paper. Post-it notes succeeded because someone found the right problem for a solution. The market was ready for better ways of doing your bills. Most importantly, the product itself was simple, affordable, and everyone could immediately understand it. Once people tried it, they couldn't imagine life without Post-it notes. The pattern behind success and failure. So what's the pattern here? Nothing seems to catch on as a world-changing invention. Only a gradual accumulation of knowledge that seems to absorb electricity can change the world in any way at all. A study of 100 startups found something surprising. The biggest factor? Not the idea, not the team, not even money. 40% of the difference between success and failure was accounted for by timing. But timing is not just a matter of luck. It's also about knowing when the world is ready for your kind of idea. The iPhone worked because people were sick of carrying around 3 different devices, and mobile internet finally became fast enough. Post-its worked because offices needed better organization tools, and the solution was totally simple. Google Glass failed because people did not yet want to wear their computers on their faces, and the technology wasn't seamless enough. Real problem, not just a concept. Not a problem that you think people ought to have, but a real, genuine one which is causing lots of pain to those who inhabit this world already now. The iPhone solved mobile internet frustration. Post-it notes solved the problem of wanting a handy bookmark you could find and use again. Those little notes were finally used to help stave off general office chaos. The things Google Glass tried to solve, indeed they claimed them all in one outing, were things people did not realize existed as problems. Third factor, user experience. Your product needs to be easy to understand and use. The iPhone's touchscreen was very intuitive. Post-it notes required zero explanation. Google Glass made people feel uneasy with it and had a steep learning curve. Fourthly, there is accessibility, and Post-its were easily accessible. Though expensive, the iPhone succeeded by offering good value for money. A prototype Google Glass with only limited functionality cost $1,500. But nevertheless, people were excited to buy one. This is something else that may intrigue you. Some inventions fail at first, then succeed. Paul Garrick remembered that in 1977, Post-its almost fell into the first category. Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times before he got the light bulb to work. To him, they were not failures. They were 1,000 steps forward to success. The bigger truth. This is the sum of everything. Innovation is not just about having technology that is better. Rather, it is being able to understand people, timing, and needs. Betamax was actually a better technology than VHS. But VHS was cheaper, lasted longer if you recorded on it, and got into rental stores ahead of Betamax. So VHS won. The Ford Edsel introduced advanced features when it debuted in 1957. Unfortunately, it was also ugly, overpriced, and was released just as an economic recession hit. In a mere 2 years, the car was history. Before Apple's iPhone was the Newton. It was an attempt to create the same sort of thing. But the technology wasn't yet ready. The handwriting recognition didn't work well enough, it was too expensive. So it failed. But lessons from Newton would help Apple some years later to build the iPhone. Failures matter too. Google Glass didn't go away entirely. In factories and warehouses where hands-free computing actually does solve some real problems, the technology found a home. It wasn't wasted, it just needed the right application. Finally, remember this: 85% of new grocery products fail. 80% of books lose money. Only 20% are ever profitable. Few even break even. Rich Karlgaard, a columnist for Time magazine, put it another way. 90% of movies lose money. There's no investment that has a worse survival rate. And yet the movie business today is the biggest happiness engine in America. That is only thanks to those 10% which do make it big. Failure is typical. It's how we learn from them that makes all the difference. To win, they are not the companies that never fail, but rather those who fail quickly, learn fast, and keep on trying something new until they find what works. Conclusion. Therefore, some inventions change the world, while others are forgotten. Why? Timing, real problems, simple solutions, good execution, and sometimes a bit of luck. The iPhone knew its time. Google Glass outpaced the times. Post-its had one perfect problem for an accidental solution. Innovation is not magic. It's knowing what people need when they want it. The ghost of the next world-changing invention may be just sitting in some lab, waiting for the right problem to solve, or the ghost of a thing that nobody knows what to do with yet. The lesson both success and failure teach us is the same. Listen to people, understand timing, and never stop learning from what doesn't work. Because sometimes, the biggest breakthroughs come from the biggest mistakes.